When a spouse dies, Social Security benefits don't just disappear into thin air. They transform, they shift, and in some cases, they can significantly change your financial situation. But here's what most people don't realize. The decisions you make years before a spouse passes can dramatically impact what you end up receiving. Let me walk you through exactly what happens, what you're entitled to, and the critical mistakes that can cost you thousands of dollars every single year. First, the basics. When your spouse dies, you become eligible for what's called a survivor benefit. This isn't some small consolation prize. Depending on your situation, you could receive up to 100% of what your deceased spouse was getting. That's right, 100%. But there's a catch. Actually, there are several catches, and this is where things get complicated fast. The survivor benefit amount depends heavily on when your spouse filed for their own benefits. If they filed early at age 62, they locked in a reduced benefit amount. That reduced amount becomes the baseline for what you might receive as a survivor. On the flip side, if they waited until age 70 and maxed out their delayed retirement credits, you stand to inherit a much larger monthly check. Here's where it gets interesting. Your own age when you claim survivor benefits matters enormously. You can start collecting as early as age 60, but doing so triggers a significant reduction. We're talking about receiving as little as 71% of the full survivor benefit if you file right at 60. That reduction is permanent. You don't get to reset it later. Wait until your full retirement age, which is somewhere between 66 and 67, depending on when you were born, and you'll receive the complete survivor benefit without any reduction. That difference could mean hundreds of dollars every month for the rest of your life. Now let's talk about something most people completely overlook. If you're already receiving your own Social Security benefit when your spouse dies, Social Security doesn't just stack the two benefits together. You don't get both. Instead, you get the higher of the two amounts. Think about what that means. If you're receiving $1,500 a month on your own record, and your spouse was receiving $2,000 a month, you'll switch to the $2,000 survivor benefit. Your original benefit essentially disappears, replaced entirely by the survivor amount. But what if your benefit is higher than the survivor benefit? You keep your own. Social Security always pays the larger amount. This creates a strategic opportunity that hardly anyone talks about. If you're widowed and haven't filed for any benefits yet, you can actually claim one benefit first, let the other one grow, and then switch later. This is one of the few remaining claiming strategies that hasn't been eliminated by recent rule changes. Here's how it works in practice. Let's say you're 62 years old and your spouse just passed away. You could file for the survivor benefit now, even though it'll be reduced. Meanwhile, your own retirement benefit continues to grow until age 70, accumulating delayed retirement credits. At 70, you switch to your own larger benefit. Alternatively, you could file for your own reduced benefit at 62. Let the survivor benefit grow to its maximum at your full retirement age, and then switch to the survivor benefit later. The math on which strategy works better depends entirely on your specific numbers, but having the option to choose is powerful. Most financial advisors don't even know this strategy exists. Let me throw another wrinkle into this. If you remarry before age 60, you generally lose the ability to claim survivor benefits from your deceased spouse. The Social Security Administration views remarriage as creating a new family unit, and your entitlement to the previous spouse's record ends. However, if you remarry at age 60 or later, you keep the option to claim survivor benefits from your deceased spouse. You can choose between your new spouse's benefits or your deceased spouse's benefits, whichever is higher. Timing matters dramatically here, and there's an exception to the exception. If your remarriage ends, whether through death, divorce, or annulment, your eligibility for survivor benefits from your first spouse can be reinstated. Social Security law is full of these intricate details that can make or break your retirement income. Now, what about divorced spouses? This surprises people. If you were married for at least 10 years and you're currently unmarried, you can collect survivor benefits on your ex-spouse's record when they die. Your ex-spouse's current widow or widower also gets their survivor benefit. It doesn't reduce what they receive. Social Security doesn't split the benefit between multiple survivors. The 10-year rule is firm, though. 9 years and 11 months doesn't count. You need a full decade of marriage. Let's address something darker, but necessary. Some people have asked me whether it makes sense to file early for their own benefit if they suspect their spouse won't live much longer. They figure they'll switch to the survivor benefit anyway, so why not grab some money now? That logic seems sound on the surface, but it can backfire. If you're wrong about the timing, or if your spouse lives longer than expected, you've permanently reduced your own benefit for no reason. You can't undo an early filing decision. There's also an emotional component here that numbers on a spreadsheet can't capture. Planning your Social Security strategy around a spouse's death feels morbid, and it is. But avoiding the conversation doesn't make you better prepared. It just leaves money on the table. Speaking of money left on the table, here's a mistake I see constantly. People assume they need to proactively monitor Social Security's decisions and catch errors themselves. When a spouse dies, Social Security should automatically review your file and switch you to the higher benefit if applicable. Should. That's the key word. The system doesn't always work perfectly. There are documented cases where widows and widowers continued receiving their lower benefit for months or even years because Social Security failed to process the change. The agency eventually makes it right and pays back benefits, but you need to stay on top of this yourself. When your spouse dies, you need to contact Social Security immediately. Don't wait for them to find out. Report the death, ask specifically about survivor benefits, and confirm in writing what your new benefit amount will be and when it starts. Get a name and a reference number for your case. I know someone who waited 8 months for Social Security to process a survivor benefit claim, only to discover the agency had no record of the initial phone call. 8 months of higher benefits gone because there was no documentation. You're probably wondering about the lump sum death benefit you might have heard about. Yes, it exists. It's $255. That's not a typo. $255 paid once. Decades ago, that amount covered a decent portion of funeral costs. Today, it barely covers the flowers. But you're entitled to it if you were living with your spouse at the time of death, or if you were receiving benefits on their record. File for it. It's not much, but it's something. Now, all of this assumes a relatively straightforward situation. One spouse dies, the other claims survivor benefits. But retirement rarely unfolds in straightforward ways. What happens if both spouses are already receiving benefits and the higher earner dies? What if the surviving spouse is still working and earning income? What if there are children involved, or if the surviving spouse becomes disabled? Each of these scenarios triggers different rules, different benefit calculations, and different strategic considerations. The Social Security system wasn't designed for simplicity. It was designed to cover an enormous range of life situations, and that complexity creates both opportunities and pitfalls. Let's dig into what happens when the surviving spouse is still working. This is where things get tricky, because Social Security will reduce your survivor benefit if you haven't reached full retirement age and you're earning above certain thresholds. For 2024, if you're under full retirement age for the entire year, Social Security deducts $1 for every $2 you earn above $21,240. That's not a tax, it's a withholding. You'll eventually get those benefits back in the form of higher payments once you reach full retirement age. But in the meantime, your cash flow takes a hit. If you're in the year you reach full retirement age, the rules ease up slightly. Social Security deducts $1 for every $3 above a higher threshold and only counts earnings before the month you reach full retirement age. Once you hit that magic birthday, there's no earnings limit at all. You can make $1 million and still collect your full survivor benefit. The question becomes whether it's worth claiming survivor benefits early if you're still working. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's smarter to delay. Run the numbers based on your specific earnings and see what makes sense. Here's another wrinkle most people miss. If you're receiving survivor benefits and you remarry before age 60, you lose those benefits. Remarry at 60 or later, and you keep them. That's a bright line rule with no exceptions. I've seen people delay weddings by a few months just to preserve their survivor benefits. And honestly, that's a rational financial decision. We're talking about potentially tens of thousands of dollars per year for the rest of your life. A few months of waiting can be worth it. But what if you remarry and then that marriage ends? You can potentially claim survivor benefits again based on your first spouse's record, assuming you meet the other eligibility requirements. The rules get increasingly complex when multiple marriages are involved. And this is where professional advice becomes essential. You can't afford to guess. Now let's talk about something that catches people off guard. If you're eligible for both your own retirement benefit and a survivor benefit, you can actually switch between them. This creates a strategic opportunity that almost no one knows about. You can claim the lower benefit first, let the higher one grow, then switch later. Here's a common scenario. Say your own retirement benefit at full retirement age would be $1,800, but your survivor benefit would be $2,600. You could claim your own benefit at 62, take the reduced amount of around $1,260 per month, and then switch to the full survivor benefit when you reach full retirement age. This way, you're collecting something while your survivor benefit isn't being reduced by early filing. The opposite strategy can work too. Claim a reduced survivor benefit early, let your own benefit grow until 70 when it maxes out with delayed retirement credits, then switch to your own larger benefit. Which strategy makes sense depends entirely on the relative size of the two benefits and your financial needs. Most people don't even realize switching is possible. They claim one benefit and assume they're locked in forever. Not true. You have flexibility here, and using it correctly can add tens of thousands of dollars to your lifetime Social Security income. One more scenario worth discussing: divorced spouses. If you were married for at least 10 years and you're currently unmarried, you can claim survivor benefits on your ex-spouse's record if they die. Your ex didn't even need to be receiving benefits yet. This often surprises people. You can be divorced for 20 years, your ex-spouse dies, and suddenly you're eligible for survivor benefits based on their work record. You don't need permission from anyone. You don't need to notify your ex-spouse's current spouse if they remarried. You just file for the benefit. The Social Security Administration verifies your marriage and divorce records, confirms the timing, and processes your claim. Your ex-spouse's other survivors aren't affected. Survivor benefits don't get divided up. Everyone who qualifies gets their full amount. It's not a pie where one person getting a slice means less for others. Multiple people can collect on the same work record simultaneously without reducing anyone's benefit. That's fundamentally different from spousal benefits, which can be affected by the family maximum in certain situations. Survivor benefits don't have that problem. Here's something that matters more than most people realize. Your filing decision doesn't just affect you. If you have minor children or disabled adult children, they may be eligible for benefits on your deceased spouse's record too. Children under 18 or 19, if still in high school, can receive up to 75% of your deceased spouse's benefit amount. Disabled adult children who became disabled before age 22 can potentially receive benefits for life. These aren't widely advertised, but they exist, and they can provide crucial financial support during an already difficult time. You need to apply for them specifically. Social Security won't automatically start paying benefits to your children just because they started paying you. File separate applications, provide the necessary documentation, and follow up to make sure everything processes correctly. The system requires you to be proactive. Switching gears, let's address the elephant in the room. Social Security's future. You've probably heard the trust fund is running out of money. That's true. Current projections suggest the trust fund reserves will be depleted by 2034. After that, incoming payroll taxes would only cover about 80% of scheduled benefits. Does this mean your survivor benefits are at risk? Probably not in the way you think. Even if Congress does absolutely nothing, which seems unlikely, the system could still pay 80% of promised benefits indefinitely. That's not ideal, but it's not total collapse either. More realistically, Congress will eventually make adjustments. They might raise the payroll tax cap, increase the retirement age further, adjust the benefit formula, or implement some combination of changes. Predicting exactly what they'll do is impossible, but completely ignoring the coming shortfall when making your filing decision. ION isn't smart either. If you're on the fence about claiming survivor benefits now versus later, the possibility of future benefit cuts might nudge you toward claiming sooner. A guaranteed benefit today is worth more than a potentially reduced benefit tomorrow. That's not financial advice, just reality. At this point, you should understand that survivor benefits are both more generous and more complicated than most people realize. They can provide crucial financial support, but only if you understand how to claim them strategically. The decisions you make, both before and after your spouse dies, have lasting financial consequences. You can't approach this casually. The information is out there, but you have to seek it out. Social Security representatives can tell you what you're eligible for, but they won't strategize with you about the optimal claiming approach. That's your responsibility, or the responsibility of an advisor you hire. What matters most is that you make informed decisions based on your specific situation, not generic advice or assumptions about what usually works. Every marriage is different. Every financial situation is unique. Your survivor benefit strategy should reflect that reality. Survivor benefits can replace a huge portion of lost household income when a spouse dies, but the system won't optimize itself for you. You have to know what you're entitled to, when to claim it, and how to avoid the mistakes that cost people real money every single month. The claiming strategies exist. The switching options are real. But they only work if you know they're there. Most people stumble through this process reactively, filing for whatever benefit seems obvious without realizing they had better options. Don't be most people. Do the research now, understand your numbers, and make decisions based on your actual situation, not what worked for your neighbor or what some forum post suggested. When the time comes, stay on top of Social Security, verify everything, get it in writing, because the difference between handling this correctly and handling it poorly can literally be hundreds of thousands of dollars over a retirement.